Yo, what's up guys? Alf here, and today I'm going to be doing a full in-depth deck breakdown of a deck that I've recently used to get to top 10 with on the arena ladder. Now before I get into it, there's going to be a Scryfall link down in the description, and if you click on that it'll have the deck list in full that you can just easily import into arena if you want to try the deck out for yourself. As in the previous videos, I'm not going to read out the text on all of the individual cards, otherwise the video will go on for ages. So if you don't know what any of the cards do, just quickly pause the video, fire up the Scryfall link and have a quick read of any of the cards that you're unfamiliar with. So with that out of the way, this is my Bant Inquisitor Blink deck in Historic, and this is a sweet one. I really like this deck. So it's basically come about with two new cards from the latest set Alchemy, and they are Grizzled Huntmaster and Inquisitor Captain. So Inquisitor Captain is super powerful. So this is basically a 4-mana 3/3 with Vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, if there are 20 or more creatures with mana value 3 or less in our graveyard, hand or library, we get given 2 of those cards at random, and we get to pick one to put into play. So the 20 or more thing, we have 29 creatures that cost 3 or less in the deck, so this is pretty much always going to hit until we get to the very late game. And this effect is super powerful because it's basically a guaranteed collected company. You know, one of the creatures is a 3/3 with Vigilance, but we get to pick out of 2 for the other one, and it's basically always guaranteed to hit until we get to the very late game. But when we pair this with blink effects and clone effects, it gets out of control how powerful this is. So if we go Inquisitor Captain and we hit Glasspool Mimic, which is a creature that copies, well, it enters the battlefield as a copy of another creature. We get to copy the Inquisitor Captain, enters as another 3/3 with Vigilance, and then we get the effect again. So we can repeatedly get Inquisitor Captain triggers with Glasspool Mimics and just put a bunch of 3/3s into play, which is crazy powerful for 4 mana. In addition to the Glasspool Mimic, we also have Soul Herder and Charming Prince, which can both blink it. So if we hit a Charming Prince off the Inquisitor Captain, we can use its ability to exile another creature and return it at the beginning of the end step to get an additional trigger, so we get another creature in play. And a similar thing with Soul Herder as well. If we hit Soul Herder off Inquisitor Captain, during our end step we can blink it with the Soul Herder, get another trigger off it, and then get another creature. And we can also do some nice sort of sequencing with the triggers, where if we exile, or if we get the Inquisitor Captain back during our end step and we hit a Charming Prince, we can exile our Inquisitor Captain and it will come back at the end of our opponent's turn, which means that it dodges sorcery speed removal like Wrath effects, which is really good against something like Control. So say we go Soul Herder, go to our end step, blink the Captain, if we then hit Charming Prince, we can then exile it, and then even if the opponent wraths our board, we then get Inquisitor Captain back at the end of their turn, and we get another trigger as well. So bear that in mind when you're going off. But even outside of the copy and the blink effects, all of the other creatures in our deck have enter the battlefield triggers. So we've got Visionary and Wall of Blossoms, which both draw us a card, which is great. We've got Spellbinder that can tax the opponent's hand. We've got Apparition that can remove whatever the opponent has. We've got Blood Mage that can either replace itself or exile the graveyard. And we've also got Grizzled Huntmaster, which is really strong as well. So basically, this card has a lot of text on it, but essentially what this card does is it's a 3-mana 4/3, which for a start is really good stats. You know, it's good at attacking in and very good at blocking against the other aggressive decks. And essentially what this does is when it enters the battlefield, we can exile the creature from our hand and replace it with a copy of one of the cards from our sideboard, which is really strong. So it's basically a tutor effect on a really good sized body. And like I said, it's good to hit off Captain as well, because we can get this effect off the Captain and then just tutor whatever's best out of our sideboard. Now when we exile the card from our hand, if we have other copies of the card that we exile, we can exile that as well to get an additional copy of the thing from our sideboard. So say for example we play the Huntmaster and we have 2 Glasspool Mimics in our hand that we want to exile. And we're against Control, for example. So against Control, a card that we want to get a lot of the time is Shifting Ceratops. So when we play the Huntmaster, we can exile both copies of the Mimic from our hand, and then we get 2 copies of the Ceratops, which can be really nice if we're getting rid of like 2 copies of something that's not that important. We can also exile copies of whatever we exile from our library as well, but I don't advise doing that specifically in this deck, because if we start doing that, it increases the chances that our Inquisitor Captain won't trigger later in the game, because we won't have 20 or more cards in our library, hand and graveyard. So when you're playing the Huntmaster, exiling cards from your hand is fine, but I wouldn't exile cards from your library, because then you start to run into problems where Captain won't trigger in the mid to late game. But yeah, Huntmaster, super strong card. As you can see from the sideboard, our sideboard is all one-ofs to be able to hit off the Huntmaster, so we have something to get out of every situation, and it's just like on a 4/3 body, it's a super powerful effect. And then the third most important card in the deck is Soul Herder. Like, these are the sort of the main engine cards of the deck. So Soul Herder, 3 mana 1/1, and at the beginning of our end step we get to just blink one of our creatures, and considering the rest of the deck is all creatures with enter the battlefield abilities, this is so powerful. It's such a powerful engine if the opponent can't deal with it. And then whenever a creature is exiled, we put a counter on it as well, so it gets bigger. And then Apparition also exiles stuff, so it gets bigger from that as well. So this is a card that if the opponent can't answer, we'll just run away with the game and just turn so much card advantage. So like I said, these are the sort of the 3 main engine cards of the deck. The rest of the creatures are all enter the battlefield triggers that are all really good when combined with these 3. So we'll start off by looking at Charming Prince here. This is a 2 mana 2/2, and it has 3 different abilities that we can pick when it enters the battlefield. Scry 2 is really nice in the early game, or if we don't have anything better to do, you know, just play this on turn 2, make sure that we're digging for lands when we need them, just helps us dig for what we need. Gain 3 life is actually really relevant against a lot of decks, you know, stuff like Is It Phoenix or other decks that have good reach in the late game like Burn or Sacrifice. Being able to give ourselves a life buffer is really nice, and we can reuse it with all of our blink effects as well. Visionary and Wall of Blossoms are both just 2 mana cards that draw us a card when they enter the battlefield, which again is really nice. I think it's good to have a high density of this sort of effect at the 2 mana slot to just make sure that we're hitting our land drops, and we can also reuse this with all of our blink effects later in the game as well. Out of the 2 of them, Wall of Blossoms is generally the better card because it can block more effectively against the aggro decks, and it can dodge a lot of the red removal. But like I said, I think having 8 copies of this sort of effect at the 2-drop slot is really important. Then we've got 3 copies of Skyclave Apparition. Similar to Inquisitor Captain, these are both really important cards in the deck, but the reason that we're running only 3 in the main is because we're running 1 copy of each in the sideboard that we can get with the Huntmaster. So that's the reason that we're only running 3 and 3 of Apparition and Inquisitor Captain. Apparition is a phenomenal card anyway, you know, just great. The best creature the best removal on a creature in the entire format, and it's even more sick in this deck because we have so many ways to blink it and reuse the removal effect. You know, Soul Herder plus Skyclave Apparition is just game over against basically any of the creature decks. So Apparition, really important card, but I think having the 1 copy in the sideboard is also really important to be able to shoot it with the Huntmaster. And then the last, Glasspool Mimic we've already talked about a bit, you know, fantastic to hit off the Captain. It also can be used as a land, and with all of the other enter the battlefield abilities, being able to copy other stuff in the deck is really good. And also, if we pick something great out of the sideboard, you know, say we pick an Archon of Absolution against mono white or a Shifting Ceratops against control, we can use the Glasspool Mimic to copy those cards as well, which is really nice in the late game. But outside of that, it is just really, really strong with Captain and can copy any of our other creatures as well. And then finally, we've got a single copy of Spellbinder and a single copy of Blood Mage. And the reason that we've got these one-ofs here, Blood Mage might look a bit weird because it's black and we're not running any black mana, but that's because we're running Neoform. So Neoform is a really, really strong card in this deck because it allows us to sacrifice any of our 2 mana creatures to tutor up any of our 3 mana creatures. And then it allows us to sacrifice any of our 3 mana creatures to tutor up Inquisitor Captain, which is super, super strong because we have so many good 3-drops. You know, we can sack like Visionary or Wall of Blossoms or Charming Prince to get Apparition if we need removal. We can get Huntmaster if we need to get anything from our sideboard. We can get Soul Herder if we have something else that we want to blink and just start setting up a card advantage engine. And then Spellbinder is really strong against the control and combo decks. You know, going turn 2 2-drop Neoform into a Spellbinder is really, really strong against the control and you know, decks like Creativity and Emergent Ultimatum and stuff like that are just taxing a card from their hand, and then we can reuse that effect with Soul Herder later in the game as well. And then Callous Blood Mage, again it has 3 modes like Charming Prince. The 1/1 mode we don't generally use in this deck. We can draw a card and lose a life if there's nothing better to do, which is decent, it always replaces itself. But the main reason it's here is being able to exile the opponent's graveyard. It's super important to have that effect against a deck like Is It Phoenix or, you know, any deck that's using graveyard shenanigans, just having a target for Neoform to be able to exile the opponent's graveyard is really strong. So even though we're running, you know, no black mana in the mana base, I think running this as a one-off that we can hit off Neoform is fine. If we draw it, we can always pitch it to Huntmaster later in the game, so it's not been a problem. And the utility it brings, you know, there's been so many matches I wouldn't have won, specifically against a deck like Is It Phoenix or Reanimator, if I didn't have this in the deck. And then finally, we've got 4 copies of Collected Company. I don't know, shouldn't really have to explain this card. It's one of the best cards in the format. Like I said, we've got 29 hits off this, which is more than enough, and we have so many good hits as well. You know, all of our creatures have Enter the Battlefield abilities, so much good value we get off Company. So that's the non-lands. The only card that I want to address that I might get a few questions about why I'm not running is Ephemerate. Ephemerate is a card that is generally run in all of these Blink decks. You know, it's just such good value for what it does. But with Inquisitor Captain in the deck, you know, we need to run a high density of creatures with mana value 3 or less for this to trigger. So that means that you only really have 2 4-of slots for non-creatures. And from my experience, Collected Company and Neoform are just better than Ephemerate. You know, Neoform has really impressed me, being able to just tutor up whatever we need. And also, Inquisitor Captain is just the most powerful card in the deck, so being able to tutor that off our 3-drops is really important. So Neoform is probably better than Company in this deck, honestly. And then Company I've found much better than Ephemerate, because Ephemerate, you need to have stuff already, you know, and also you need to have a mana spare, so you can never really, you know, you can play your creatures on curve, but then you need to have an extra mana for Ephemerate to be good. Whereas Company, you know, it's good if you're ahead, it's good if you're behind, it can get you back in games where you are behind. Whereas Ephemerate, you know, if you're up against a deck with a lot of removal or sweepers, like, it's more difficult to get the value off Ephemerate, whereas Company and Neoform are always both great. So that's the reason why not, and I've been really happy with running these 2 over Ephemerate. Mana base, only 20 lands in the deck. Obviously with Glasspool Mimic we're running 24 in total because of the Glasspool, sure. All basics, check lands and shock lands, because 4 of our 24 lands are tapped blue sources. And we do have fairly stringent mana constraints in the deck. You know, we need double green for Huntmaster, we need double white for Apparition, we need white blue for Soul Herder. And considering 4 of our lands are just blue tap lands, we need to be running as many jewels as we can to enable the mana base. And we're running the check lands over the slow lands because we have a bunch of cards that we kind of need to be playing on turn 2, and the slow lands don't really enable that. So for that reason, I think this mana base has been working out really nicely. You know, I don't think we can afford to run utility lands because we're running the Glasspool Shore as 4 of our lands, and we're a 3-colour deck as well. So that's the main deck. I've been really happy with it. I've been working on this deck, you know, I've tried out a million different shells, from Neo Storm combo to the Yorion builds, and this has been by far the most consistent and best across the board. Then onto the sideboard. Like I said, this is all one-off tutor targets for the Huntmaster. The first thing that I want to address is Hushbringer. You know, similar to the Selesnya Life Gain deck that I covered a few weeks back, this is another deck that really gets hosed by Hushbringer. You know, it shuts off all of our Enter the Battlefield abilities, which is a real problem. So, like in the Selesnya Company deck, I was running Reprobation for a while as a way to answer it. But the problem with Reprobation is I feel like you need to be running at least 3 or 4 copies of this card in the sideboard for it to be worth running at all, because you need to have a decent chance of drawing it in those games against Auras or other decks that run Hushbringer. And so you need to make space in the sideboard for 3 or 4 copies. And I found that whatever cards, you know, whatever 3 or 4 cards I cut from the sideboard, I would lose more games not having access to those than I would to the Hushbringer. So, you know, I'd cut Kazandi Mammoth for one of the copies of Reprobation, and then I'd lose the game because I didn't have a land to tutor, or I'd cut Realm Cloak Giant and then I'd lose the game to Creativity because I didn't have a way to kill both Serra's Emissaries, or, you know, I'd cut Gargaroth to make room for Reprobation, and then I'd lose to Mono Red because I didn't have a good way to stabilize. So, from my experience, you know, it is kind of rough just having to say, you know, if I get paired up against Hushbringer, I'm probably going to lose. But because I've used all of these one-offs multiple times, I don't really feel like you can afford to justify cutting 3 or 4 of them to make room for Reprobation. Obviously, if Hushbringer decks become more popular, you probably do have to find a way. But for now, I've been much happier with the 15 one-offs, and then you kind of just admit if you come up against a Hushbringer, you're probably not going to win that game instead. So the one-offs in the sideboard, you know, it makes it very easy sideboard plan-wise, because you basically never sideboard with this deck. The only times you might sideboard is if there's a 3-mana or a 4-mana creature that you want to be able to hit off Neoform, but for the most part you just don't sideboard at all, because the great thing about the Huntmaster ability is it doesn't just transfer the card from the sideboard into your hand, it makes a copy of it. So you can get as many copies of these one-offs as you want. You know, say you're up against a sacrifice deck like a green-black Lurrus deck, and Yasharn is like the best card in that matchup. Even if the opponent keeps getting removal spells for it, you can keep getting copies of Yasharn into your hand off the Huntmaster. So running all one-offs is really, really nice with the Huntmaster to get you out of any situation. So starting off with Giant Killer. So this is a card that you can tutor into your hand to deal with any, like as a removal spell for big creatures. So it can kill Serra's Emissary against the Creativity decks, it can kill Korvold against Jump Food, it can kill Niv and Territorial Carvu against the 5-colour Niv decks. So just a bunch of really good targets to be able to hit with this. And then obviously we can play it out as a creature afterwards and start tapping down the opponent's creatures. We've got one copy of Mistcaller. So this is really nice as a one-sided way of shutting off opposing collected companies, shutting off Indomitable Creativity and Muxus and stuff like that. And it's also really good at shutting off opposing Inquisitor Captains. Mirror matches can often come down to who gets the better captain hits, which can be kind of miserable sometimes. So having Mistcaller as like a one-sided way to shut off your opponent's Inquisitor Captains and not yours is really nice. And I much prefer this over something like I was running Meddling Mage for a while. To stop very similar things, you know, Meddling Mage naming Indomitable Creativity or naming Muxus, for example. But I found as a 2-2, it's very easy for the opponent to kill this. You know, say you're against a Creativity deck, I found with Meddling Mage they would just go Unholy Heat the Meddling Mage and then just Creativity and win anyway. Whereas at least with Mistcaller, in that situation, if they target the Mistcaller with removal, you can sacrifice it in response, which stops them going off for that turn. And then we can, in our turn, find another way to like blink the Huntmaster or play another one and then grab another Mistcaller to play for the following turn. So the fact that this can be used at instant speed and then we can get another one during our turn to shut off their next turn's play is really nice. And like I said, the fact that we can make it one-sided so that we can still resolve our Inquisitor Captains and collected companies, but we can shut off the opponents when they're doing them, makes this really important. One copy of Remorseful Cleric, just graveyard hate, very useful against a lot of decks that use the graveyard, and the fact that we can activate this at instant speed is very nice, especially against a deck like Phoenix where we can exile their Phoenixes just before they get them back or turn off Delirium at instant speed, so very important to have graveyard hate in the side. Fourth copy of Skyclave Apparition, kind of gone over this already, but just very useful to be able to get against the creature decks, very useful to be able to get if the opponent just has anything that's with mana value 4 or less that we need to be able to deal with. One copy of Kazandi Mammoth, this is basically just as a tutorable land. We're never playing this for the creature side, but if we need to get a land, if we're missing land drops for whatever reason, we can just play the Huntmaster and grab this and just play Kazandi Valley as a land. One copy of Deputy Detention, mainly here to deal with tokens. You know, a deck like Goblins going super wide with Krenko can be quite difficult for us to deal with, and similarly if we're up against the Selesnya Life Gain Heliod deck, if they've comboed off and they've made a bunch of squirrels, we can then tutor up the Deputy of Detention to exile all of their tokens. So very good against tokens. And then also there are some like odd scenarios where the opponent has a creature that Apparition or Giant Killer can't hit. Like I was recently playing against a Creativity deck and they were running Sage of the Fools and Locust God, and they played Sage of the Fools, and they'd obviously drawn it, so they were going to try and Creativity into the Locust God. And Sage of the Fools is a creature that can't be hit with Apparition or Giant Killer, so being able to Deputy it in that matchup was really nice as well. Then we've got one copy of Night of Autumn. This is predominantly here as a way to kill artifacts and enchantments. Apparition can kill most artifacts and enchantments, but the great thing about Knight of Autumn is we can kill any artifacts and enchantments, and then when the Knight of Autumn dies, the opponent doesn't get a token like they do with Apparition. And additionally, there are some artifacts and enchantments that Apparition can't kill, like Bolus's Citadel and Torrential Gearhulk, for example. And additionally as well, we can grab this if we need a cheap way to gain life. You know, if we're against a deck like Mono Red or Sacrifice, and we play the Huntmaster, if we only have 3 mana available and we just need to gain life, this is a perfectly good card to grab for that reason as well. 1 copy of Archon of Absolution, pretty much exclusively here for the humans matchup. You know, they basically just can't beat this card, and they can have some very fast starts. You know, if they start spellbinding stuff from our hand, it can be difficult, so having Archon as a tutorable target that just completely slows their deck down to a halt is really, really powerful. 4th copy of Inquisitor Captain. Like I said, this is probably the most powerful card in the deck, so having it be tutorable off Huntmaster basically gives us 7 copies of it in the main deck, which is really nice. And we can also get multiple copies of it because of Huntmaster just making copies in our hand. So yeah, being able to grab this if we just need to combo off is really nice. 1 Arasta, pretty much exclusively here for the Phoenix matchup, which can be quite a difficult matchup. So, like, we can generally deal with their creatures that they're just casting normally, like Dragon's Rage Channeler and Crackling Drake and stuff, but it's the Phoenixes that can be a real problem. So having this is a way to just produce loads of blockers, so even if they repeatedly get back Phoenixes, we have good ways to block, because in our main deck we don't have any creatures with flying or reach, so this is just a great way to make sure that we can stabilize against the Phoenix decks. 1 copy of Shifting Ceratops, like I said, fantastic against control, whether that's blue-white or Jeskai. It's actually surprisingly good against Merfolk as well, because pretty much all of their creatures are blue, and it's also just complete game over against the mono-blue tempo decks as well, and that can be quite a difficult matchup, because we are generally only playing 1 spell each turn, so if we can resolve a Huntmaster and get a Ceratops on the battlefield, that's a great way to stabilize against those mono-blue tempo decks as well. 1 copy of Yasharn, like I said, fantastic against the Sacrifice decks, and the ability to get multiple across the course of a game in the face of Meathook Massacre and Mortality Spear and stuff like that is really nice. 1 copy of Elder Gargaroth, just a generically good card, but it's very important at stabilising against the red-based aggressive decks. If we can land this, it's a great way to stabilise and a great way to turn the corner in the game really quickly as well. 1 copy of Realm Cloak Giant as a tutorable sweeper. Now, you might not think in our deck that we'd want a sweeper, but there are certain situations where if the opponent has a really explosive start, that we'd want to sweep the board. There are also a lot of Yorion Inquisitor Captain decks going around at the moment, and typically they can get more explosive Inquisitor Captains than us because they're running 4 Mirror Image as well as the Glasspool Mimic. So if the opponent has gone super wide, they probably don't expect us to be running a sweeper, and we can just use that to stabilise against them. But most importantly, Realm Cloak Giant is here as a way to beat multiple Serra's Emissaries against the Creativity deck, because if the opponent just goes Serra's Emissary on creature, we can just grab Giant Killer and kill it. But if they go Creativity for X equals 2, and they get 1 Serra's Emissary on creature and the other one on instant, Giant Killer no longer works, whereas Realm Cloak Giant we can tutor and then just sweep the board, so it gives us an out to that scenario, which is nice. And then finally, 1 Coma. Again, this is fantastic against control, or it's basically game over against control. If we can get near 7 mana when we resolve our Huntmaster, then this is great. But in general, I just wanted a card that, as the game goes on against grindy decks, this is a card that will just completely run away with the game, you know, especially against a deck like 5-color Niv, where they can keep grinding throughout the course of the game because they have Expressive Iteration and Niv. And even outside of the Niv matchup, just any grindy deck, you know, as we get towards 7 mana, loads of decks don't really have a good answer to Coma, so this is just a great way to run away with the game. So that's the deck. If you've got any questions at all, drop me a comment below. Now onto the gameplay. Just got a couple matches for you that I was playing on the ladder. Okay, sweet, here we go. Okay, sweet, so we go first, and yeah, this hand looks great. Turn 2 Charming Prince, turn 3 Apparition if we need it, and then Company at the top end. Really nice curve out. So we'll play the Temple Garden tapped here. See what the opponent's on. Okay, Hard Evidence, so that's almost definitely Creativity. So, which can be a pretty tricky matchup. You know, we kind of need Huntmaster is really good. Oh wow, okay. So we definitely want Neoform here because that can get us either Spellbinder or Huntmaster next turn. Just debating whether we want... I mean, we kind of do want the company. I'm thinking Neoform, if it resolves, we'll shuffle our library anyway, so it shouldn't matter. But if the opponent counters the Neoform, then it'll be nice to draw the company the turn afterwards. So I think what I'm going to do here is we can either Neoform for Spellbinder, but considering we have this spare blue mana here, I think I'm going to try Neoform for the Huntmaster and then play Mistcaller. And then, you know, that presents something that they just have to deal with. So we'll exile the Apparition here, because we're not really going to get value off the Apparition in this matchup, I don't think. Most of their stuff that we want to remove is tokens, and Apparition can't kill tokens, so we'll exile the Apparition here, go for Mistcaller. You know, whether this plays better than Elite Spellbinder, I think will depend if they have instant speed removal here or not. The problem with going for Spellbinder is that there are quite a few hands that we can get punished. You know, if they have multiple creativities, for example, it's not great. And the other thing is you're also kind of wasting a mana. At least this way we're, you know, paying 2 mana for the Neoform and then using the spare mana to cast the Mistcaller. And now they need to find a removal for it before they can combo off. So for those who don't know, Mistcaller, when you sack it, if you sack it in response to the opponent's creativity, it will exile the creatures that would have gone into play. And considering the creativity decks only tend to run it's like not many copies of what they're trying to combo into, it's basically just game over. So they need to kill this Mistcaller before they can combo off. So yeah, Neoform's a good draw here. I think we'll attack with the Huntmaster. No point in attacking with the Mistcaller because they could have Shark Typhoon, which could trade off with it. And then I think we'll just pass and hold Collected Company up here. And, you know, I feel we're in a decent spot here. If the opponent has a counter spell for the Collected Company, we still have Charming Prince and Neoform, which is nice. So we'll fire off the Company here and see if they have a counter spell or not. Looks like they're thinking about something. Ha, okay. That's a pretty sick play. So they're taking the Mistcaller, and if they sacrifice the Mistcaller, it'll stop my creatures coming into play off Collected Company. So we're going to submit 0 here because we don't want to exile creatures from our library because it might shut off Inquisitor Captain later in the game. Okay, so we'll attack here, and then I think we'll probably blink the Huntmaster with the Charming Prince and trade in the Soul Herder, and then we can Neoform into Spellbinder, which is nice. Oh crap, I misclicked, I didn't mean to scry there, whoops. Okay, that was pretty bad. Because the scry, it doesn't even matter now because we shuffled our deck with the Neoform. So what I meant to do there was exile the Huntmaster and swap this Soul Herder in our hand for a Mistcaller. We might be in trouble here. I mean, the downside of that play would be that the Huntmaster would come back as a 4/3, which would mean that our whole board would be killable by that Anger of the Gods, so maybe this might work out alright. Yeah, they're having to use Prismari Command instead, but we really could have done with that Mistcaller. Oh wow, okay, sweet. That's a pretty good draw, because now we can get the Mistcaller, we can Huntmaster, get rid of this Soul Herder, replace it with a Mistcaller, and then the opponent's removal doesn't line up well against us, because if they tap out for Anger of the Gods, we're left with just a 5/4 that will win the game if they don't have an answer for that. And if they don't kill the Mistcaller, they can't creativity here either, so that play with Charming Prince actually worked out alright in the end. So they'd need Anger plus Unholy Heat or Anger plus Fire Prophecy to get them out of this, I think. Still not seeing what version of creativity they're on. They could be on, you know, the main two builds are either Serra's Emissary or Locust God Sage of the Fools combo, which just wins on the spot. And you know, Serra's Emissary was the most popular one for a long time, but I've seen quite a few lists playing Locust God Sage of the Falls, which I actually quite like. Okay. Well, we'll just sack the Mistcaller in response. Now they can't creativity this turn. I mean, they don't really have mana to creativity anyway. Sacking a clue, okay, that's a great sign. So I'd imagine we've got this locked up here. They could have Fire Prophecy for the Huntmaster, and then... Oh, okay, sweet. I was going to say, they'd need... Well, if they Fire Prophecy the Huntmaster, they sack their token, and they'd have to chump block with the creature token as well, which would leave them with no targets for their creativity. So I think either way they lost there. Yeah, great thing about this deck, no sideboard guide needed, because you basically never sideboard, so... Just trying to think about how our game plan changes depending on what build of creativity they're on. I mean, the only real difference is that for our deck, the Serra's Emissary build is a bit more forgiving because we have outs. You know, if they just go Serra's creativity for 1, we can Giant Killer the Emissary. If they creativity for 2, we can get the Realm Cloak Giant, whereas the other build with Locust God Sage of the Falls, they basically just win on the spot. We don't have any instant speedways to interact with that, so getting Mistcaller or putting pressure on them alongside Spellbinder is the main way that we'd win there. So yeah, this hand looks good as well. We've got the Spellbinder here, and the Huntmaster and company, so we just need to make sure that we're drawing lands here basically, and these Visionary and Wall of Blossom should definitely help with that. Okay. Thought the opponent was going to send a message with that crab token then. So I think we'll lead on the Wall of Blossoms here just because it dodges Unholy Heat and Fire Prophecy. You know, if we draw a Neo form, we're better off having... You know, if we cast Visionary, they could easily kill it with a red removal spell, and then future Neo forms we draw won't be live. And also Visionary can't attack past the 0-3 anyway, so... they could have Archmage's Charm here, but I think I'm still going to run out the Spellbinder. I think getting Spellbinder down earlier rather than later, especially at this point, is really important, because if they're playing the Emissary build, they could actually creativity with this token next turn, so... Okay, so they Prismari Command and make a token. Yikes. Okay, I mean, I think we have to take the creativity here, but this is going to be a really tough hand to play through. They have a lot of good answers. You know, Aether Gust plus Fire Prophecy is problematic here. Because if we go for Huntmaster, they're going to Aether Gust it. And then next turn, I think we just have to go for Captain here. This could be wrong. I might regret this, but if we go for Huntmaster, they Aether Gust it. Then we go for Huntmaster the following turn and get the Mistcaller. They can just kill the Mistcaller with Fire Prophecy. So I think our best play is to just try and apply a bunch of pressure here with the Captain. Now, unfortunately, we can't even blink the Captain here because they have Fire Prophecy. If we try and blink the Captain, they'll just kill it, so... I think our only hope there was to just hit a load of Glasspool Mimics off that Captain. Yeah, again, I'm not 100% sure that was the correct play last turn. Like I said, we can go Huntmaster, they'll Aether Gust it, and then go Huntmaster again, but I don't even think that wins because they will kill the Mistcaller, and then they'll be able to creativity the following turn. So I think our only hope here is that they miss lands. But they have these creature tokens that we can't deal with either, so they can use the treasures plus their lands to creativity the tokens, which is a problem. Yeah, I don't know how we beat Aether Gust plus Fire Prophecy here. It's tough. I think we'll just attack first here, and then we can either company and hope to hit something good. You know, we're only running one Spellbinder, so we can't even hit that off the company anymore. And if we did hit a Huntmaster, I mean, they'll Aether Gust the company anyway. I mean, maybe passing with the mana up might make them think that we've got like a counterspell or something, but I think, yeah, I don't think any play is good here really. We'll just Visionary the Huntmaster into hand. but I'm pretty sure they're just creativity now. If they didn't have that Fire Prophecy, then I think the correct play, the turn that we played the Captain, would just be to play the Huntmaster, get it Aether Gusted, and then that would buy us a turn to play the Huntmaster again and play Mistcaller. But yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe let me know in the comments if you can find a better line to beat this, but yeah, they're just creativity here. At least we got to find out what build they're on. Okay, so they are on Locust God Sage of the Falls, we just lose immediately. So yeah, that was pretty tough. I'm going to have to watch that back and see if there was a better line for that turn. But yeah, Gust plus Fire Prophecy seemed pretty unbeatable there for them. But going into game 3 on the play should be a bit better, hopefully. Okay, so our mana situation is not ideal here, but we've got Charming Prince and Visionary to dig for it. We've got Huntmaster to get Mistcaller if we need it, so I think this hand's fine. Generally on turn 2, if I don't have the third land, I prefer going for Charming Prince because it gives us more, even though we don't draw a card, you know, we're not gaining any card advantage, we get more looks at our land. Okay, I mean, we are after land, so I think we have to top both of these, but we're probably going to be using Huntmaster to dig for Mistcaller, and we don't have any blue mana yet, which is a bit of a problem, but I think, you know, having lands, even if they're not exactly the right colour, is more important than missing land drops, so I think we'll just attack with the Prince here, and then we'll probably want to resolve the Huntmaster before the opponent gets to 3 mana so they don't have Archmage's Charm up. And we haven't seen any 2 mana counter spells. You know, the only one that I would even consider creativity running here would be Censor, and we haven't seen that at all, so I don't think it's worth playing around. The only slight annoyance with this play is that we have to shuffle the deck, I think, by using Huntmaster's effect. So I think we have to exile one of the captains here, because if we don't draw a land for the next turn, I really want to be able to draw off the Visionary. So even though we don't have blue mana here, I think Mistcall is still the right choice. You know, we'll draw blue mana eventually, and the opponent's only on 2 lands at the moment, so I think we'll probably regret not getting Mistcaller if we don't. There is a chance that even though Captain's the best card in the deck... Okay, blue mana's great. That was a great draw. Yeah, there's a chance that we might have been better off exiling both Captains for 2 Mistcallers there. Considering we have Collected Company, we might not need the Captain, and we might need the second Mistcaller, but I'm not sure about that. We'll see. Okay, so they've got Prismari commands. The one advantage of playing against the Locust God version is that they need more mana to combo off. They need 2... Hold on a second. I think we'll Company now to play around Archmage's Charm. If they Anger of the Gods, they have to sacrifice their treasure to do so, which is pretty good for us. So we'll Company before they have 3 mana for Archmage's Charm, and now we can blink. Now we have 4 mana, we can blink the Huntmaster and get another Mistcaller, which is really nice. But yeah, like I was saying, the advantage of playing against Locust God 1 is they need 5 mana and 2 separate artifacts or tokens to combo off. So they do take a little bit longer to set up compared to the Serra's Emissary version. Sweet, so we get back the Huntmaster here. And do we want to exile the Visionary or the Charming Prince? Visionary could be useful if we need lands, but Charming Prince being able to blink all of our stuff is much more valuable later in the game, I think. No, I think it's probably Visionary. I think we're probably fine at 4 mana, worst case scenario, and if we do draw a land, we can go Mistcaller plus Captain, which is really nice. So yeah, grab another Mistcaller, just for insurance. Okay, we did draw another land, that's great. So we'll attack in here. Okay, they gust. I mean, I think we'll bottom that. We don't really want another Huntmaster here. And I think we're going to be playing Captain now anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah, we'll play Captain here. Anger of the Gods could be problematic, but hopefully we can hit a Charming Prince. If we can hit a Charming Prince here, we can exile our captain so it comes back at the end of the opponent's turn, so we don't get as blown out by Anger of the Gods. Sweet. So we can Glasswall Mimic, copy our Charming Prince, exile this captain, and now even if they have Anger of the Gods, we have a threat coming back at the end of their turn. And we have the spare Mistcaller here, so I feel pretty good about this position now. You know, Anger of the Gods is worst case scenario, but we still get Wall of Blossoms, plus Captain, plus whatever Captain hits, and then we've got Mistcaller again for the following turn, so... Okay, they kill the Soul Herder, that's fine. That almost certainly means they don't have Anger of the Gods as well, which is great. Iteration, okay. I mean, this is looking encouraging, because we'll definitely have lethal damage. Well, almost certainly we'll have lethal in play with the captain coming back here. Okay, let's see what we hit. Okay, get the Soul Herder. So what could they have here? Fire Prophecy. I mean, Fire Prophecy takes us off lethal. I don't know if it's worth playing Spellbinder first. We can't make the Soul Herder. I'm thinking, you know, if there was some shenanigans we could do with Charming Prince where we make the Soul Herder big enough that even if they kill the captain, it's lethal. I don't think anything makes a meaningful difference though. If we play Spellbinder, they'll just use their removal spell in response. So I think we'll just attack here and see what they have. Oh, they don't have anything, okay. Sweet. So yeah, that can be quite a tricky matchup, but Mistbinder is really strong in that matchup at just keeping them off the combo. Okay, so going second here. Yeah, this looks decent, I think. Only got 2 lands, but we have 3 different creatures that can dig us to more lands. We've got Soul Herder to reuse our stuff. We've got Huntmaster to dig for what we need. So yeah, I like the look of this. Opponents on planes. Okay, Innkeeper. So this is probably the Heliod combo deck. So I think we'll lead on the Visionary here. Just because that'll... Well, I guess Wall of Blossoms and Visionary both discourage them from attacking. Oh, they're going straight for it. Hopefully, if they don't hit, you know, we can Neoform into... Oh man, really? So they hit the combo. So if they hadn't hit the combo, we could have Neoformed into Apparition, then we'd have Soul Herder. I was just trying to think whether we had an out. I don't think at 3 mana we have an out for it, even with Huntmaster. So that was unfortunate. But I feel pretty decent about this matchup overall. You know, Apparition plus Soul Herder is so difficult for that deck to beat. You just need to know which piece of the combo you need to take out. You know, generally, hitting their life gain enablers in the early game is the most important thing. Because if you can get all their life gain enablers off the board, then there's no way that they can combo off, which is basically the only way they can win. So this hand, if we don't draw, we're doing nothing for the first 2 turns, and if we don't draw a 3rd land, we're basically just dead. And even with 24 lands, hitting your 3rd isn't guaranteed. So I think this is a mull. This is much better. We have Apparition and Neoform. We can just put one of these lands back here. Probably put Breeding Pool back, because we need double white, which we already have, and we also need double green for Huntmaster if we draw that. So, but yeah, I feel, you know, on the play. I mean, to be honest, the opponent had the turn 3 win there, which isn't going to happen that often. So, nothing we really could have done that last game, I don't think. Okay, so they try to Sara here. I think we'll Apparition on our turn, and I think you always have to take the Soul Warden here. You know, even though the Trelisara will go up to a 4/4, that's not going to kill us straight away, and there's so much of their deck that is a problem when they have their life gain enabler. So we can Apparition the Soul Warden here. and then we can neoform the Visionary into Soul Herder and start reusing the Apparition. And the other thing is, obviously we're a blink deck, so we get a bunch of Enter the Battlefield triggers. So Soul Warden specifically is very difficult for our deck to beat, because every time we blink anything, they're getting life gain triggers off it, which is especially difficult. You know, if we'd gone for Trelisara there, everything we play is going to get them Heliod counters. So I think, well, we'll attack first here, and then we'll neoform this Visionary. Even though we've got company, you know, we might not necessarily hit an Apparition sort of thing. And if we don't kill this Heliod here, we're giving the opponent a window to company into life gain enabler plus Scurry Oak. So go for Soul Herder here and just kill the Heliod. And now we've got this set up. You know, they could have their own Apparition, but I think we're in a pretty good spot now. I think the key when playing against this deck is to just make sure that you keep them off their life gain enablers as much as you can. Because if they don't have any life gain enablers, they don't have anything going on with the deck really. The most powerful thing they can do is Heliod, giving their creatures lifelink, which is pretty slow. So we might have to deal with this 5/5 Trelisara before the Lunarch Veteran here, because that is getting pretty big, but fire off company here. Okay, wow, that's great. Apparition plus Charming Prince is really nice to hit off company, because you can order the triggers in such a way that the first exile you do, you don't give them a token, because you exile your Apparition with the Charming Prince before you exile their creature, so they don't get a token back. So we'll exile the Trelisara here and they won't get a token, which is nice. And then we can get the Apparition back, exile their Lunarch Veteran, and exile the Voice of the Blessed here, and they're just left with a bunch of Apparition tokens. So yeah, Soul Herder plus Apparition is so difficult for this deck to beat, because they're very synergistic. You know, I've played a bunch of the life gain deck, and if the opponent has a lot of targeted removal, it's very difficult to get your combo off, if the opponent knows what to target anyway. Another company, okay. So presumably they hit the Soul Herder here. Thankfully we have Charming Prince to blink the Apparition. Again, the most important thing here is that we just keep them off their life gain enablers. Don't really have any good blocks, so we want to keep these Apparitions usable. So I think we'll lead on Spellbinder here. We're going to go Spellbinder and then Charming Prince, blink an Apparition, but it's useful to see what they've got in their hand. Okay, so tag the Voice of the Blessed. Even more reason to get rid of this Lunarch Veteran now. So we'll blink the Apparition that will only give them a 1/1 token. And then yeah, get the Apparition back, exile their Veteran, and now they're just top decking. Okay, so they play Voice of the Blessed. And they attack. Well, we'll just double block here. Charming Princes, you know, they can be useful, but we've already got decent value off them. Okay, company's a good draw here. Okay. So we can Huntmaster and Glasspool Mimic, copying either the Apparition or the Spellbinder, probably the Apparition here, and just hit the Voice of the Blessed. And then what do we want off the Huntmaster here? Probably just a Captain. Start putting this game out of reach. You know, if we can Captain into another Soul Herder, that would be ideal. So we'll attack him with 3/1 and the Charming Prince here. I'd be happy to trade off with those two 1/1s if they want, or their Apparition. Okay, Innkeeper. So we want to kill that as a priority. Again, just keeping them off the life gain enablers is really important. So we'll slam the Captain here, see what we hit. Oh, perfect. Soul Hoarder, that's exactly what we want. So we'll attack him with these three. They don't really have good blocks. I mean, we could be potentially playing into a collected company here, but I think we're in a good enough spot where that shouldn't matter, hopefully. And, you know, they've already played 2 with this game, I think, so I'm willing to take that risk at this point. So we'll blink the Apparition. We want to order the triggers here so they don't gain a life. We can exile the Innkeeper before they get their token, which You know, it's only minimal, but at this point it could make a difference, so might as well. Okay, sweet. So now going into game 3, I think the key here is probably just to try and set up, or just try and keep them off their life gain enablers, and then once we've done that, we have a lot of good ways to, you know, put the game out of reach. But yeah, Apparition plus Soul Herder is so strong against these creature decks. And the other thing is, you know, that Selesnya life gain deck, one of the big weaknesses is you don't have that many good options out of the sideboard, really. Like, if your game plan just isn't good against what the opponent's doing, it can be very difficult to come up with a way to sort of switch the deck up to give you an advantage. Okay, sweet. Let's see how game 3 goes. Okay, I think this is fine. You know, we don't have the Apparition, but we've got Soul Herder, we've got Captain, we've got good ways to draw lands, and hopefully Apparition's probably the most important card in this matchup. Okay, so I think we have to play Mimic here, and then we can curve out and play either Visionary or Wall of Blossoms into Soul Herder. Okay, slower start from the opponent is good. That's what we kind of needed here. So I'll run out the Visionary. Okay, Neoform is perfect. Now we can Neoform into Apparition, and then we've got the Soul Herder as well, so that was a great draw. So I think we'll just Neoform here, and then we'll Apparition and hit the Soul Warden. Again, like I keep saying, as long as you can keep them off their life gain enablers, it's very difficult for them to win. Okay, that's a bit annoying. They've got an Apparition of their own, so we can't get value off our Soul Herder just yet, but we do have Inquisitor Captain here, so might be able to hit another Apparition off that. So we'll go Charming Prince, blink the Captain here. And like I said, you know, the opponent doesn't have a life gain enabler, so I'm not worried about Heliod, I'm not worried about Company right now. And that's the thing, like this deck, you know, we can grind with the life gain Voice of the Blessed game plan, but the thing that is a problem is the combo, so we're just focusing on keeping them off that as much as we can. Okay, another Voice of the Blessed. The fact they played that first makes me think they don't have another life gain enabler. So we'll definitely take the double block here. I don't think they'll be running anything that can give them life at instant speed, so that seems pretty safe. And then we'll get the Captain back here. Okay, that's not a great hit, but better than nothing. Okay, Company's nice. I think it's either Company or Captain. I'm not sure which is better here. Probably Company, because if we hit any clones, we get kind of triple the value. Spellbind is nice here, and Charming Prince allows us to reuse the Captain, so okay, they brought in a Reprobation against us. I mean, I think Apparition's probably the more problematic card, because we can blink whatever they put Reprobation on with Soul Herder, so I think we'll just exile the Apparition here. And then, yeah, we haven't got good attacks, obviously. Okay, nice. So we can Mimic the Captain. Get another trigger. Apparition's nice. I think going for another Mimic here is a bit greedy. With Soul Herder, we want to take any opportunity to get Apparition on the field that we can, so... Although, having said that, the opponent now can Apparition our Apparition, which could be a problem, but they don't know that we have Soul Herder, so we might be able to get away with it. So, I mean, from our point of view, them taking down the apparition's the biggest play here, but yeah, okay, we'll definitely take that. I mean, they're at 23, so the Spellbinder isn't that problematic, but... And they obviously don't know we have Soul Herders. So I mean, this is a great position now. We can start blinking Apparition and our Captains. We can start blinking the Spellbinder if they're holding stuff in their hand. Just trying to think of the order that we want to blink stuff here. I think we'll go Captain first. And then we can blink the Glasspool Mimic. Get another Captain trigger. I mean, I don't think we need to copy... We could have copied Apparition there so that it's not hittable by their Apparition, but I think we're better off just getting more stuff onto the battlefield and putting this game out of reach. You know, we've been playing quite conservatively and we've definitely stabilised now, so I think, you know, the quicker we close out the game, the less draw steps they have anyway. And yeah, they're very incentivized to Apparition our Soul Herders here anyway. So we blinked the Apparition with the Charming Prince there so that we could hit whatever they play at the end of their turn, so we can just hit their Apparition now. Soul Herder becomes even bigger. Okay, Company's a nice hit. I mean, it didn't really matter because we had Captain as well. Another Soul Herder. I mean, yeah, this should be too far gone for the opponent. You know, even if they drew Collected Company, they can only hit 2 of their 3 parts of the combo here, so we'll attack with the Token, the Herder, the Captains. Is it worth attacking with the Visionary? Probably not. They're at 21, so they can afford to make favourable blocks for now still. And they're playing life gain, so... But yeah, I think they don't have many more draw steps left now. You know, that was the advantage of blinking the Captain there. And I think we'll blink the Spellbinder, just because they're obviously holding on to something, and it'll give us another attacker in the air. So we'll blink the Apparition, steal their Apparition, then we'll blink the Spellbinder, get rid of this Reprobation, and tax whatever they're holding on to here. Oh, it's a Scariac. Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, they need something crazy good here. You know, we've kept their life total low, so Ajani's not an out anymore. Soul Warden. I mean, I'm pretty sure that'll be the game. We can just exile the Soul Warden with our Apparition and attack with everything. They can't... I don't even think they have enough mana for a Castle Ardenvale activation here. Nah, we've got lethal here. We'll just attack with everything. We know they don't have company. And that's the game. Sweet.